Today we interview Heidi Joy from Clearwater, Florida, Tami Simms from St. Petersburgh, Florida, and my friend Melinda Estridge from Washington, D.C. We're going to talk about challenges, difficult times, and how community can be great for you and your business.
Well, thank you for coming out here. This is my favorite place to bring people when they come and visit. My happy place.
It certainly is gorgeous. So, you know, you've had some difficult decisions to make. Do you stay? And if you do stay, do you rebuild? Mm-hmm. How did that process go?
Slow. You know, I'm a super high D personality, and I just could not get clarity. And I just knew that I needed to wait, and I needed to make decisions with my strategic mind and not my emotional mind. You know, because I went back and forth with, let's just be Humpty Dumpty back together again, to I'm selling the whole thing and I'm leaving the beach, to I'm knocking it down and I'm building something new. And, you know, I finally, about the end of last year, about 4 months in, I got clarity that I don't want to leave here. I worked my whole life to live here. So I made the decision to knock her down. We're going to build something very hurricane sustainable, and I'm not leaving the beach. This is what I've made my home.
It's interesting because you've taken that knowledge from what has been your process, and then you've used that with your clients on recommending what they should do.
I mean, I was getting calls right after the storm, and I was literally mucking out my own house. And Heidi, can you come see me? I want to sell my house, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm in yoga pants and a t-shirt, and I'm sweating. Is that okay? And I would show up all dirty, and you know, I would sit with these people and cry, and you know, and I'm like, just wait. It's never good to make big decisions when you're highly emotional. Good decisions do not come from emotion. So,
and it's interesting because, you know, you said take care of what's really important now. Where are you going to be? Talk to your insurance companies. What can I assist you with in terms of mediation, terms for mold and whatever?
Yep.
But don't make the big decision yet. And I bet you that helped so many people, especially hearing it from you,
yeah,
who was giving them advice as opposed to somebody swooping in and saying, oh, you got to sell.
Well, there were, you know, unfortunately in tragedy, there's sharks, right?
Yeah.
And people were cold calling people out here, you know, I've got a buyer, this, that, the other thing. And, you know, when I come to them with a place of, I'm in it with you, you know, I lost everything as well.
Yeah.
So it just brings it to a whole nother level and perspective of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I counseled some people to stay, right? Like that was what was best for them long term. You know, it's just like any other seller. Like, what's your goal? Why would you do it now? But it just comes from a different place, and sometimes there's just blessings in the pause.
You know, one of my beliefs is that there's always opportunity in difficult times and really tough challenges. And you've come up with a really great opportunity in my mind that's long-term based. Why don't you talk to us about it?
So obviously I wanted to recoup what I lost. And the only way for me to truly see my way clear on that financially was to knock the house down, build something new, sustainable to today's code, and then wait, because in 5 years, this whole beach is going to look different.
Yeah.
You know, this whole beach is going to be homes that are more sustainable, homes that are raised.
So when we're talking about sustainable, we're talking about materials like concrete,
correct.
Metal roofs.
Yep.
Everything's a floor up so water can flow underneath.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of these houses that are not doing that now either correct that or knock down and rebuild.
And we don't know what the diminished value of the flooded homes are going to be.
But it's also interesting, you're saying land value right on this strip is, let's say a lot is $5 million.
Yep.
That if you create a home that is a flight up, you've already added another $1 million to the land value.
That's a good example. You know, that house is built up. They don't have to worry about flooding on the first level, and you know, a home like that made it through the storms. So getting to today's code, so that they manage the Florida weather.
Yeah, it's interesting, and how the architecture can actually be done so it's beautiful in that the raised up level seems part of the architecture as opposed to just being on stilts.
Yep, absolutely. And depending upon if you like a modern style home, Mediterranean style home, more of that cottage Key West look, they can all be done aesthetically that are beautiful.
Yeah, it's and this one's owned by a famous ball player, right?
He's the one that built it.
Oh, okay.
And this is a triple lot, so he built the main house obviously for himself, and then that section over there for his parents.
Nice.
And now another famous gentleman lives there. He's a local real estate developer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you made the decision to stay here. What were the factors that went into that?
Well, there were multiple things, right? I want to live here. And what it's going to cost me to rebuild, if I made that investment somewhere else, would I be happy? And the answer ended up being no. If I'm going to make that investment, I want to live here. And
how many year investment is it? I mean, are you looking to stay for 50 years or 10 years?
I wish I was looking to stay for 50 years. I don't know, I have that much gas left in the tank.
I guess what my point is that...
No, I'm looking at it strategically from a 2 to 5 year hold.
Okay.
And I'm building...
Does that have anything to do with capital gains? But I guess
no.
Okay.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because obviously I'm going to be reassessed and all the numbers are going to change, because if you build...
You're starting at zero.
Correct, right? But the other part around that, I truly believe that values and the complexion of this community are going to look dramatically different 5 years from now. Yes, there's there's a lot of things that are happening right now in the downward direction, but
Right.
it's not going to stay that way. And you know, for those, and I've met with multiple builders and contractors to put together plans on what can be built on what size lot, different architectural styles, so that I can help somebody that wants to invest and do exactly what I'm doing: buy the house, knock it down, build something either to keep or to you know, flip out of once it's constructed.
Well, Heidi, thank you for doing this interview with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I am excited that you're here.
So we've known each other for a long time, and I've seen many different incarnations of you throughout that time. Do you remember how we met?
So I believe, if timing is right here, it was about 20 years ago. You were doing a breakout at a Star Power conference, and the room was packed. And I don't know if I was sitting on the floor, but I can still see you standing at the front of the room, and you were sharing your woes on how you had just lost a little bit of your average sales price, and you dropped from like 1.2 to 1.5.
Dropped from 1.2 to 1.5?
I'm sorry, for 1.2 to 900.
Yeah.
And I remember the room booed when they heard that.
They did, and what happened is I said that I'd lost, my average sales price had gone down 400,000. And that's when they were like, oh, that's terrible. Then somebody from the crowd said,
how much?
What are you down to? And I was like, said 900,000, and they booed, and I couldn't stop laughing. I thought that was the funniest thing. But it's interesting how points like that have impact on you, because it had impact on you for what reason?
So you're obviously one of my mentors, somebody that I've followed for a long time in your journey, and I never know what's going to stick, but that was one of those things that stuck. And back at that time, I think my average sales price was $110,000. So like you were literally Jesus Christ superstar to me. And fast forward to like 2018 when I decided to jump into luxury, you were one of the very, very first people that I thought of. And I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, it's funny. And that moment sticks for me because it taught me how relative everything is that I need to be careful when I'm speaking about work that I'm doing at multi-million-dollar properties when the audience may be averaging 250,000. So
yeah.
It's funny, that moment stuck with both of us for very different reasons.
Yeah.
So when I first met you, you were married, you were enthusiastic, but the sense that I got was that you deferred to your husband and that you were timid. Those were my initial, that's not who you are now. You're not even remotely like that person now. But that was my impression of you then.
That's what you saw.
That's what I saw.
Yep.
And one of the big changes in your life because we're going to talk about how you work through really difficult times and move, and that those difficult times are one of the things that are going to allow you to be where you really should be.
Yep.
And one of the really big things was when you were in partnership with your husband, both as a relationship, but you were business partners, and that didn't work out. And
no, it did not.
And it was difficult. Let's talk about a little less from the personal side, but what were the difficulties that you ran up against business-wise at that time?
So I literally remember this like it was yesterday. It was 2018. I moved to where we are currently. It's about 30 minutes from where I lived for a very, very long time. And I literally knew no one. Not a soul, no one. And when the business partnership split, all of the reviews and all of the things that we had built stayed there. And I remember the day.
Did he take all the old business then for what you guys did in the old location?
Not took business, but
okay.
Like we each got a copy of the database.
Oh,
and,
okay. And you both could work it.
Yep. But you know, the brand, the name, all of that stayed there. And I remember one day I Googled my name. Nothing. Zero zip, nothing. Like I had never sold a house in my life. You went on Zillow, nothing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm invisible. And that was a really rough year.
And what did you do to get on your feet?
Well, after I was finished feeling sorry for myself.
And we all need to do that for a while. So that's part of the process.
It absolutely
That's part of the process is you need to honor those feelings.
Yep.
And you need to recognize them and you need to be very conscious of them. You shouldn't ignore them. And then at some point you've had enough time doing that and you're ready to say, okay,
so
what are we going to do?
That was 2018. It also happened to be the year that I turned 50. And I sat there and I did my math problem.
I've got to interject. So you can do the math at how old she is now. No, what I'm saying is you're effing hot. I mean, you'd be effing hot for a 35-year-old woman. Don't hit me. I was being nice. All right, so go back.
So I was kind of looking at my life, right? Am I halfway done? Halfway over? Like, where am I, right?
Right.
And I got strategic. I needed to get clarity. I knew that at that juncture, I really truly didn't have anything to give anybody. I didn't want to build a team. I didn't want to mentor. I didn't want to do anything. And I knew that I needed to create my own brand, my own identity, and I needed to just literally recreate everything. And I remember, this is silly, I'm telling on myself. I remember when we were doing the paperwork when I got divorced and they said, do you want to change your name? I'm like, oh my God, no, because then no one will find me. It's freaking 2018. Let's be honest for a minute. If somebody wants to find you, they're going to find you. And then later that year, I made that strategic choice to go to Joy. It's easy to spell. I think it'll be great for marketing. and I changed my name. And that became
And Joy was never a family name.
Joy was my middle name.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't have any attachment to my maiden name, any of that. I'm like, when I get analytical like that and get into my strategic thinking, that was part of the process. And that also became my mantra. If it does not bring me joy, I'm not doing it.
Great mantra.
And everything was about joy.
And because you moved to a slightly new market, we're still in the same Tampa, Clearwater area, but you moved to a higher price portion of this market.
Yes and no, right?
Okay.
But I decided to look around, and I looked at neighborhoods and this, that, and the other thing. I didn't have a farm. I didn't have anything.
So you might as well move where the prices are higher.
So I sat there and I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I don't want to sell more houses. I want to be like Patrick from 20 years ago and have over $1 million average sales price. And I'm like, okay, what's your gap, Heidi? Is it people? Is it homes? Well, it was both. And I also had this huge sense of inferiority that I think that a lot of people do when they think about selling luxury real estate. I don't know. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, well, what do you do when you don't know what to say or what to do? You go to school, Heidi. That's what you've always done. So in December of 2018, I went to a luxury with Tami Simms.
The Conclave.
Yeah. With Tami Simms was the instructor. Gianna Caudell was in the room. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing here? And she's like, well, I'm starting over in the Naples market. Everybody knows me in Indiana, but they don't know me in Naples. And it was another one of those aha moments, like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And I've had all of those people throughout my journey that are always there, that have become my friends, and that was the beginning. It was the following year, I had the highest sale of my career at that point at like 4.7. My average sales price went up to like 1.5 million. I got your number.
Good.
And it's just been building ever since.
And in many respects, sometimes higher end homes are take more work, but
I don't find that to be the truth.
There's many times that they don't.
I do not find that to be the truth.
And there's sometimes they're easier because they're more experienced buyers and sellers, and you don't have to hold their hands as much.
More experienced buyers and sellers, more experienced agents on the other side.
That's true.
And clientele that actually appreciates you.
Yeah.
I get more appreciation from, and I sell everything still, don't get me wrong, but I get more love, appreciation, kindness from my high net worth clients than I've ever gotten from anybody else.
In that move, post-divorce, is there anything you wish you'd done differently?
Quit feeling sorry for myself faster. But
How long was that feeling sorry for yourself process?
6 months.
Well, you were married 18 years, so you had a double whammy. You lost your business, the established business, and you lost your mate. So 6 months is actually not that long.
It is for a high D, honey.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's fascinating. You did this change at 50. You really had no choice. You had to do the change at 50.
Well, no, but I could have kept doing the same thing and getting the same result, right?
Right. But tell us a lesson that you learned about starting a new career later in life.
It's never too late to start over. Whatever happens, right?
Right.
Like we're not chained to anything. We're not imprisoned by anything. If the business model that you're working doesn't work for you anymore, change it. If the brand that you're currently running with doesn't work for you anymore, change it. It's never too late to start over. You can do anything that you set your mind to. You ask for help.
Yeah, and I love how before you felt like, remember I was saying that you felt timid to me? And then you were like a little afraid of being in the luxury market because that was them versus me, that you didn't feel
a little afraid, honey. I was scared to death.
So to me, that's the definition of courage, when you're really frightened, but you move into it anyway. So that was very courageous, and it was obviously the right thing to do. So I'm really happy for you. But so many people have so much fear about starting a new career or starting in a new market or just with a little education, making the right connections, because one of the things that we're talking about in this video is how community, our Star Power community, our Rev community, has really enabled us to do what we need to do. So why don't you talk about how those communities have enabled you to move forward, let's say in 2018?
Sure. So I feel like I have multiple communities. Like I have my local geographic community that I've built, and then I have this big, beautiful real estate community. And that year I went to Rev in Baltimore, and truth be told, it was the first time I ever slept in a hotel room by myself.
Oh, really? And it was the Four Seasons.
And I wasn't going to come, and I sat at the back of the room and I hid. Can you imagine me hiding now?
No.
And I hid, and the people wouldn't let me hide. They're like, "Come on, you're coming to dinner with us. Come on, you're coming. You're going to come out with us tonight." And I didn't want to go, but it was the best decision that I made. It was Don and Terry Lynn McNaughton that said, "You're coming, and if you're not coming, we're coming to pick you up."
First of all, they're wonderful people. But that was one of the great things about that Rev conference is how we really reached out to new people to make them feel comfortable.
But I wasn't new, right?
That's true. You were just
right.
hiding.
So that I wasn't new. I was just solo.
Yeah, for the first time.
And that was the part of that recreation. I'm very visual. I love pretty things. I like creating things. Implementation, not so much. But I had this dream in my head of what my brand was going to be, what it was going to stand for, what it was going to look like aesthetically, and then walking in that joy mantra.
I really love the metaphorical and almost spiritual change by changing your name to Joy, because that sort of encapsulated this whole move. And I like it when people do that sort of thing. I think that's a really brilliant move. All right, so let's move on to your next big challenge, and you've had a lot of them in your life. The next big challenge was two individuals named Helene and Milton. The two.
Can I flip them off in this video?
Yes, you
because
can.
It's not super classy or luxury, but that's how I feel about them.
So two major hurricanes that hit this area hard because you're on a beach community. And in fact, because you had to leave your house, we are staying in a good friend of both of ours, Melinda Estridge.
We are a very incestuous group.
We are, and she allowed me and Rob to stay here while we were here. She's allowed you to stay here while you rebuild your house. And that's just more the connections of being in a community. It allows these connections to happen.
The random acts of kindness and generosity, I'm speechless. And as realtors and top agents, we're givers, we're fixers, we're doers. To sit back and have to take and to have to receive, it's hard. But I'm learning to do that, right? Because I want somebody in the future to allow me to give that to them. I believe that there's no mistakes in God's world. Yes, Melinda and I are friends. We're not best friends.
No.
But we've had this opportunity to grow our relationship more. So I feel like an absolute princess in a luxury home, and it's a great place for me to get some peace and some solace and get back to this side of the bay and start rebuilding my beach.
Awesome. The storms were devastating. Mm-hmm. We went by your house yesterday, and from the outside it doesn't look bad.
Looks fine, right?
And even when you go inside, it doesn't look bad.
Looks like I'm remodeling.
It does, but tell us about what it was like.
So again, I said we were a very incestuous group. When Helene came, I was actually up in Massachusetts with Bob and Lillian.
Who we interviewed earlier.
Yes.
So there you go.
And they're like, "Oh my God, a storm's come." I'm like, "No, this happens all the time. Don't worry, Bob. Don't worry, Lily. And it's fine. We haven't had water in 103 years. I was not worried. And we were on the plane to fly home so that I could go like evacuate and get my house ready because I went to the Northeast. And you know I love shoes, purses, clothes, and stuff that would have not normally been on the floor was on the floor because I was packing and doing all the things. And we got stranded there. So I was never able to do any prep. Not that that really would have changed anything, except for maybe a couple of things that I would like to save. And you know, I had up to my waist of water, sewage in my silverware drawers. You know, anything from waist down was gone. And it wasn't just water, because water can kind of be sanitized, but sewage is a whole nother matter.
Yeah, sewage and mold. Too big, too...
I can tell you how quick mold grows now.
How quick?
36 hours.
Oh, really? That quick?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. One of the things that we talked about, though, that really impressed me is that one of the best advice that you gave your clients, and I love this advice in general, was you do not need to make any decision right now. All you really need to do is figure out where you're going to stay. How do you talk to your insurance companies? Do you have people for remediation? But don't make any long-term decisions because you're too emotional right now.
I call it the stabilization, right? So when you are highly emotional and you're in a highly emotional state, you're not stable. You know, and I would counsel people that when you are emotional, you do not make great decisions. So number one, what's the first thing that you have to do? You have to stable your person. Find a place to stay. You have to stabilize your mind. Take a deep breath. Don't make any big decisions. And then take it step by step from there. And I was literally telling people, don't sell. Don't sell yet. Wait. We don't know what this is going to look like yet. Just take a pause. If you don't have to sell right now, don't.
That's great advice for everybody in every situation.
Because people want to feel
wait.
safe, right?
Yeah.
What's the number one thing that people want? They want to feel safe and they want to feel like they have options. And I was able to, unfortunately, because it happened to me too, show up from a place of, I'm in this with you. You know, I'm not just somebody here to sign up a listing. You know, oh, and then the vulture buyers that were calling, got anything damaged, good deal, whatever, before it goes to open market. And I'm like, could everybody just take a minute, please?
You know, again, it goes back to community. It's a way that you get to connect with your sellers and buyers. You get to be authentic with them and really give them what they need in that moment. And that's as rewarding as the income that you make, if 100%. Not more. 100%.
And I think that's been another one of the big lessons and part of my journey. You know, when I was working at a different price point, I didn't have time to create relationships, right? It was very transactional. And when I did less transactions but higher volume, I actually got to be in relationship with people. And that was a game changer for me, you know, to really truly be in relation with people because I didn't have time before.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I love that shift from transactional to relationship. I talked about it with Chip recently in a previous episode, and I feel that it makes the clients more satisfied, but it also makes you happier. And, you know, that counts a lot. So this week you sent me a text saying, listen, I've got to put my mom into hospice. And I think we arrived on Thursday. You just got her into hospice on Thursday, and then later that night she transitioned.
When I sent you that text, I was hoping that you were going to say that you were going to cancel. I was, because I didn't want to be torn in two places. And you're like, you know, typical Patrick, on to the next, I'll see you Thursday. And I'm like, did he read that? Well, what a blessing it was that you were here.
Good.
No mistakes.
Yep, good. Tell me, I know you're in the middle of processing this still, and I know that you've known that this day was coming for quite a while. Have you learned anything? Can you say if you've learned anything from this so far?
Again, to show up and to be authentic and I had a coaching session about 2 weeks ago, and I just felt like I was juggling so much, and I had overcommitted myself, and it was too much. And Amy said to me,
Amy Stair?
"Yep,
Okay.
Heidi, you only need to figure out which one of those balls are glass. The rest of them will bounce and come back to you, but you need to figure out what the glass ball is."
It's good advice.
And I was like, "Whoa."
And the glass ball was getting your mom into hospice.
No, the glass ball was me saying no to her.
Oh.
And not going to teach for her, which
Got it.
I just don't, when I commit, I'm there. And then my next glass ball became getting my mom here and getting her into hospice and getting her to what she wanted.
She wanted this. She was ready.
She's been beyond ready. And, I shared this with you the other night. I feel like I've lost my mom twice.
Right.
I lost her when she got sick. And I just lost her again 2 days ago. But that woman made me who I am. She made me strong.
How so?
She's German. You keep marching. But no, she was like, you don't give up. Like you get up and you get up, you show up, and you go to work, right? And that's what we did today, because I wanted to just kind of like hang out with you and whatever. And I'm like, no, I've got to go see these 100 people that are waiting to get in this house. And that's what my mom would want me to do. That's how I honor her legacy, right? And it's not in a workaholic way like it used to be, because that's the other beauty of selling at a higher price point. You don't have to do as much. You work a lot less hours.
It's true. It's true.
I have the least amount of stress work-wise, and I work the least amount of hours that I've ever worked.
Yeah, and making more money.
Mm-hmm. And happy.
And Rob and I have discussions about this, and we're not head to head on this. But for me, one of the most beautiful emotions you can have is a bittersweet emotion. That the sadness of your mom transitioning and the joy of being there to witness it with her is so beautiful. And
this is something that people don't talk about, right?
Yeah.
They don't talk about death and dying. They don't talk about the end. They don't talk about how to do it, how to get through it. And I was kind of struggling. I went to bed at 9:00 last night and I woke up at 2, and I'm like, I can't not say something that my mom just passed away. Like, that seems weird. But what do I say? Because I don't want the I'm sorries. I don't want all the.
I know.
I hate sympathy, because sympathy makes me feel like a victim. And if there's one thing that I am not, is a victim.
Right. Which is one of the things that you've changed in your life, I have to say.
Like, you're a flood victim. No, I'm not. I'm a flood survivor, and I'm building a new house. It's all about my mindset.
Yeah.
But, honoring her wishes and going through it. And I believe every challenge in my life, no matter what it was, stubbing my toe when I was a kid, getting in a car accident, divorce, rebuilding a new business, flood, blah, 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 blah. There's lessons, there's experiences. And if I can share those with somebody to make their journey a little less difficult because I've been there, that's what I want to do.
It's fun. It's fun. Heidi, first of all, thank you for having us in Melinda's home, but especially during this very poignant time of your life. I feel very blessed to have been here, these days when with your mom.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this time with you, and I surely appreciate you being here.
Well,
it was supposed to happen just the way that it happened.
Well, thank you, and and our audience says thank you too. Well, we are here with my dear, dear friend Melinda Estridge. Hey, honey.
Hi.
So Melinda is such a great broker and such a good person and such a fun person. When she found out that Heidi didn't have a place to live. She has a home down near Bel Air Bluffs, and that's her getaway home. And she offered it to Heidi, which she's been using it gratefully, which was very generous. And then she found out that I was coming down and interviewing Heidi, so she offered it to me too. So I got the master bedroom. I got. By the way, we love the shower. By the way, down there. So
What you love about it? I'm curious.
the water pressure was great.
Well, I'm
And
responsible for that. Bob would have had nothing to do with that.
the water pressure was great, and it had multi levels to play in.
Yeah.
So, when I walked into your house, I was shocked because in the background is your home in DC. Very, very tasteful, very, beautifully lit. And your home in Florida is, if you could imagine the Disney Princess Ariel getting together with Paris Hilton and creating a home, that's your home in Florida. We've decided that your alter ego did this. Her name is Bubbles. And all I could feel was how much joy you must have felt designing this and making this a real getaway.
Well, and that will come up again when we discuss further how that all came to fruition.
But you're really good at bringing joy into your life. I feel like that's one of your superpowers. You bring joy into your life and to those around you.
And Heidi Joy into my life.
So is that an intentional thing on your part? Is it just a byproduct of who you are?
It's funny, I give a lot of credit to my mother. That was one of the most endearing, making people belong and feel special my entire life. And sometimes I feel like I could never live up to her. I don't think I ever met anyone that didn't adore my mother. But she always made people feel special. She was looking at the person at a party that would be in the corner of the room, not engaging, maybe not enjoying themselves, and would say, Mindy, which is my nickname, go make them feel involved and special, go talk to them. So my mother was always aware of the people around her to make sure that everyone was taken care of. And I think I learned that from her, and it served me well in the real estate business as well.
And you've embraced it, and
I have.
you've brought your own version of it because throughout the years that I've known you, I've always liked hanging out with you just because you're a lot of fun. Let's be honest.
Quid pro quo, my friend.
Okay, okay. So it's interesting the beginning of this home that you so graciously let Heidi use actually comes back from corresponding time of the biggest challenge in your life. So we're talking about Heidi's challenges, we're talking about St. Petersburg's challenges. Let's talk about your biggest challenge in your life, Melinda.
And I gave that some thought, and I think one truly rose to the top, which was almost 10 years ago, come September. And I was telling you earlier, the day that I was settling on this house in Florida, I get a phone call. I'd had a routine mammogram, and my doctor was on the phone and said, I have some unfortunate news. You have a very invasive form of cancer, of breast cancer, and we're going to need to have you get into surgery as soon as possible. And at that moment, you're so in shock, and because you think, hey, no big deal. I'd gone in for a biopsy. They said, oh no, 90%, this is very common, no big deal, it's probably nothing, don't worry, which is why we all went down to Florida to settle on the property. And when I heard that news, you're in shock. I'm glad that I had my husband and my very dearest friend with me, because you're shaky, and of course I had to concentrate on,
Jamie Coley was there with you?
no, actually, it was Jane Lyons,
Oh, okay.
a little bit prior to Jamie and I having gathered so closely or become so close. And they were very strong for me. But here I was trying to deal with issues on the walkthrough. The sellers were not the nicest people. And, trying to deal with all of that and making phone calls, trying to orchestrate surgeries. And first question in my mind was, am I going to need chemo and radiation? And of course, I needed all of that. So it turned out to be a year of my life. I worked through the cancer the whole time. I did not have the concoction where I lost all of my hair, just half of it. So I was still able to operate without people, really knowing what was going on. But I had employees and agents that worked for me that, I needed to keep going. And just to have handed in the towel at that point was just not an option. So although that was incredibly difficult, 2 days after chemo, you're just totally down for the count, sick. And I mean, it was just terrible. And radiation is every day, for a month. So I had 2 surgeries, chemo, radiation. At that point, I think when anyone is faced with that traumatic situation, your life changes in that moment and everything becomes clear. The only gift I can say that cancer truly gave me was refocusing on the most important things to you, the important people in your life, and how you want to live the rest of your life, because you just don't know how much longer you're going to have. Every year when I would go back in for them to check and recheck, you're nervous beyond belief. Is it back? And there was one point where they sent me in for an MRI in about 4 years, and they found something they didn't like, and I'm like, oh my God, this is happening again. So I think all of us, sometimes we're on the wheel, hamster on a wheel, building your business, working hard, 60-hour weeks or more, that you're just go, go, go. And at one moment when something changes, you really reevaluate everything you are, who you spend time with, because you just don't know how much longer you're going to have. And so everyone thinks they're impervious and don't think about it until it happens. So it truly did change my life. I decided that I wasn't going to work with incredibly difficult people, two of which I had during my process. And the people around me, the people that worked for me, that were all very supportive and wonderful during the whole time. And it made my husband and I closer. Sometimes that can, drive a little bit of a wedge between people. We got closer, and he will be, my buddy for life. And I remember my last chemo treatment, which I knew I was going to feel like hell afterwards, but it was over. A couple of my friends came in, they all sat around me, they made it a joyous event, went out and had a drink afterwards. And even though I'd be feeling like hell the next day, that moment of them being there and knowing that that part of it was over was just incredibly special. Not to mention the Star Power family that has been through it. I mean, I remember people sending me pajamas and flowers and balloons and get better and we're with you. And I mean, that meant the world to me. So it was not only local community, but the community that I had made with realtors across the country that will still be dear to me always.
I like the point of how you got clear, that helped you to get clear about what was really important. So a couple of things come up for me is, one, I love that you're letting difficult clients go. Honestly, once I got the nerve up and I had the luxury of being able to fire clients, quite often when I'd let them know that I was firing them, they would change their whole attitude and become the client that I wanted them to come. And sometimes they just had the wrong idea of what the relationship was supposed to be, and that it was up to me by making an ultimatum about this is what's acceptable for me, and this is what I'm willing to do and not willing to do.
And one of Bob Boland's life lessons was always for me, the less attached you are to the outcome, the more attached it becomes to you. And I think when people see that it's not necessary or not worth it, and that you're not just interested in the next deal, they kind of have a reset themselves. And it really does make a difference.
Yeah, detachment is key. Detachment is key to your happiness, and I believe to your success, because you're going to have a better attitude. And I think that's really words for wisdom. The other thing that I really liked with what you said about that, Melinda, is that, you know, I think you're clear about bringing joy into the world. I think you're clear about bringing joy into your life. I think you're clear about connecting with those that you really want to stay connected to, and you do a great job of it. Um, and um, I would say that joy and happiness and then that connection. And again, you have the luxury because you've had a successful business and you got money in the bank. So you do have that luxury.
Well, and I think that the question becomes, or for me at least, real estate was not the most important thing in my life. For some people, that may be the case, but it was not for me. And number two, how much is enough? I mean, when you're looking at the
Yeah.
money that you're making and how you're living your life, some people are so dedicated. And again, on that wheel, they have so much that it becomes more of a competitive self-actualization thing that, how hard are you going to keep working? When is enough enough? And really make a decision as you come into the last third of your life, how you're going to live your life and what are really the most important things to you.
Yeah, and I feel like you're doing a great job with that. And as you said earlier, I feel like your cancer helped you to get really, really clear and to create that really beautiful home for you, which is almost like a reaction to cancer. The joy in that home is a
Well,
reaction.
it was because everything went into that. After I'm going through all of this, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this my happy place. And I have always felt that your surroundings, the art that you have, the furniture, the things that surround you, to me, create creativity. They help me, expound, be better, think big. If your life is disheveled and what's around you doesn't motivate you or make you look at the bigger picture, it's sort of a shame. You really need to be somewhere where you have solace and feel that this really represents how I feel, who I am, and to share it with others like you and Joy. Heidi.
And I like looking at pretty things. Let's be
Yes.
honest. That
Yep.
I Rob's probably the prettiest of all of them.
And I see your cat. I have a black cat myself. So
That is crab cakes, by the way. So let's go in from this to, I feel like there's a natural segue to how you are the next stage of your business about getting clear about what you want to do and bringing in community. So why don't you talk about what you're doing now or putting into effect?
I think that because I've been doing this, 40 plus years, as you know, and back 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, agents would stop working and maybe pay referrals to other agents, but sort of let this rich and full database, if you've been, having a CRM and keeping track of things and all the people you've helped through the years, to just let that go. And, I sort of, with star power and information and some of the people that coach me, you have a very valuable product to hand off to somebody else. But then how do you do that? And there's many different, a lot of people bring their family into the mix, which is a lot easier, hopefully. But if you're searching for that person who represents your values, your ideals, works as hard as you do, not easy to find. They have to be someone very familiar with your market area, younger than you are, and willing to treat the people that you brought into the operation, because a number of my agents are younger than I am and will, supersede me in time. That, finding that right person is not only critical, but not easy. So the very first person, which is a funny story that I had talked about combining with, was the son-in-law of two very good friends of mine that spend the holidays with me in Florida. And he was having an affair with his lead buyer agent when married to their daughter. So
Oh
that
dear.
blew up. Yeah,
Oh
that
dear.
was, I chose friendship over the business. And we
Oh
were six
dear.
months into it, tying up details.
Oh
And then
dear.
the next person, we were getting along fine, back and forth, figuring out the details, went to lunch with his team that had no idea what he was doing and looked at me to say, well, why would we join with you? And I said to him, you didn't share that with them up front. So that
Oh,
imploded.
gee.
So just trying to, and then the
But
next,
problems like this implode so you can find the right situation. I feel
that is
like
exactly
the
right.
timing wasn't right and you hadn't found the right solution anyway.
Dodge the bullet.
Yeah.
So this group that I have joined with are in my market area. We are a perfect fit. There's one other person that will eventually buy both of us out. And
Are
so,
they all with Long and Foster?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think, what it's easier to operate within the company. I mean, I've been with them the entire time I've been, in the business. To change at this point, would not be easy. I mean, if it's
Right.
something when he takes over that he decides to do, that's going to be up to him. But I cannot stress strongly enough the need for legalities, no matter how much people get along. Everyone needs to understand, and that's what took the most amount of time to have someone kind of broker. We use Cleve Gladys that works with Viral Workman that would
Sure.
have us on a Zoom call every week, and we would discuss what our goals were, how the business looked like, how long we thought we were going to be in it, our market areas, how we spent money. He combed over all of our P&Ls, our systems, how that was going to work. And then, how do you split up the business if you've been both farming the same areas and so forth. So once we got all of that hammered out, we handed it over to an attorney to draw up, chapter and verse what would happen. And at the end of whenever I decide, whether it's 5 years or whatever, to hand the business over to John, I would then become an agent under him that would work when I chose to work. And the way we did it was that he would pay a 30% referral on every past client I had until he paid off what my business was valued at. So
Got it.
what's great is to have a person that knows how to value your business, and they take the last 3 years, they average it out, they put a number on it. And then once that number is paid off in time, he will own everything outright. And then I would be on a split just like any of the other buyer agents, and then work when I chose to. Because as well as I do in this business, very few people just say, like the government, and especially recently, you're done today, right? And there's the big retirement party and you exit. Real estate tends to trickle down, I think. And in order to stay relevant, which is important to me, I want to still have purpose by mentoring, maybe training some of the newer agents that he may hire, and do business when I choose to do it, but know that I can travel and work on my own time and enjoy the rest of my life.
I think that's just brilliant. I think it sets up. I feel like, Melinda, you're living a very intentional life, and those intentions are across the board. They're financial, their relationships, their joy, their experiences. I know you travel a lot. And I just think I think that's what true wisdom is.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
And Melinda, I'm so happy you've been my friend for so long.
And I'm happy you've been mine.
Thank you for the interview today.
You're welcome. Love you.
Tami, do you remember where we met?
Absolutely. We were at a conference in Lake Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, right.
We took a gondola ride together.
With you and your mom.
That's right.
And then we liked it so much we made them take it around the second time.
That's right. And if you recall, the gondolier was actually an aspiring opera singer.
Right, and he sang to us.
Did.
Oh my God, well, I finally got to take a gondola with Rob in Venice. One of the things with farmer markets is they can be very expensive and then just be geared towards a more affluent market. And what I feel like you're doing so great here is how you're doing double produce for people with food stamps.
That's right. One of the things that we think is the most important that we do is participate in a program that allows folks that use the SNAP or EBT program, some people know it as the food stamps, to use their benefits here for fresh, healthy, organic food. And that can be anything from breads and meats, jams, honey, and of course fruits and vegetables. But we double, dollar for dollar, their benefits towards Florida-grown fruits and vegetables.
It's brilliant because so often food stamps don't allow you to get quality food.
That's right.
And this is like a win-win for everybody. The other thing that caught my attention was how the market served as an important place for the community after the two hurricanes, after Helene and Milton.
Oh, absolutely. So after the hurricanes, right, first Helene and then Milton, right, it was insult to injury. And so people were spending time helping neighbors, cleaning up debris, hauling, wet carpet out of houses. And when we launched the season, the first Saturday in October here, it became an outlet for people to experience some joy and to fill their refrigerators that had been spoiled because of the loss of power for an extended period of time. So we served that need. It also served the need of our vendors, many of whom also had damage, and so it gave them the opportunity to earn an income.
They needed the money.
They did. And then it was also a place where people could actually gather for a little bit of sunshine after such trauma and hug one another and listen to the music. It was so heartwarming to see the role that the market played on that particular weekend.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Why do you do this?
Oh, well, I got invited to serve on the board because I have experience with board governance and policy and that sort of thing, and my skill set was needed. And then I started volunteering, and I fell in love with it. And so now it's a passion. So I'm here every Saturday. My clients know that this is my space. If they need me, they know that they can come here and chat with me, right?
It's pretty amazing because there's around this area are some really nice condos, which just was already, even before this, was your farm of yours and your mother's.
That's right.
And in fact, your mother lives in one of these buildings.
That's correct.
Which is really cool.
So we get visits from lots of clients who shop the market, and of course they get to see me volunteering and giving back, and it's really a win-win. And I had no idea that it was going to be that.
So just talk to me about the importance of community in your business.
People crave a community where they can belong, where they can feel welcome, where they can have access to things to do, where they can find volunteer opportunities, where they can enjoy beautiful nature. And so this is kind of an anchor, if you will, to that sense of community that we have here, which is partly what I think makes St. Petersburg really special.
Yeah, and it allows, especially the larger a city gets, it's harder to stay connected to people. And this is a great source of connection.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is. So a lot of people that I will see during the week and at business meetings and other types of functions, they'll say, I'll see you on Saturday at the market.
Tami, I love you and I love your mom, and this is so much fun. And to see you in your habitat, and it brings me so much joy of what you're bringing to the community. I love you.
I am so
wait, we
glad.
can't hug too quick because we'll mix up the microphones. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like and subscribe below. If you're interested in becoming a member of our network, America's Top Agent, please go to patricklilly.com. And next month, we'll be interviewing Danielle Garofalo, the superstar marketing coach to all the top agents in the States. Until then.